This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, did you know we have our own YouTube channel? Yes, it's 2025, and big news, we have a YouTube channel like everybody else out there. But the point of the YouTube channel is that you don't just have to listen to the PR Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can also watch the PR Podcast. Now, I have a face made for radio, but my guests don't. And so I encourage you, and it's always more fun to watch people than it is to just listen to people, right? So even though I'm an old radio guy, still like the video. So tune in to the PR Podcast on YouTube. Just search the PR Podcast. You'll come up with our channel, and you can just scroll right down and choose your favorite episodes and watch them as well as you listen to them. That's on YouTube at the PR Podcast. So check us out. Now, on with our show for today. We got another amazing guest. Erika Gulija is Vice President of New Heights Communications, a Washington, D.C. based firm. She is a sought-after political communications consultant, and she makes her clients the go-to sources for reporters and producers alike, while crafting messaging that helps them control the narrative. Her toolbox includes best practices for traditional media, as well as digital and communications practices that help her clients reach new audiences in this era of custom news feeds, echo chambers, and fragmented media consumption. Erika, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. What an incredible introduction.
Glad for you to be here. You working in politics must be a little bit busy these days, huh?
Certainly. It's a busy time.
All right, tell us about it. Tell us about what's going on in your world right now.
Yeah, so at New Heights Communications, we work with clients kind of across the progressive ecosystem. Some of those are campaigns, some of those are candidates, and we work a lot with nonprofits. So those folks are pretty active, whether it's an election year or not. And we work with a lot of clients in the election space, whether they're working on voting rights or they're working on ballot measures. And we have a saying in the political world that there are no off years. So whether there's an election or not, we're always thinking creatively about how we can keep our clients in the news, either looking forward to the next election and what they have coming up, or reminding folks of the wins that we had the year prior.
There's got to be a lot of strategic forethought in what you do at the same time that you're moving probably very quickly. Give us a little peek inside your world as to how you're helping clients craft the messages that they want to get out there and then have them turn on that dime to execute very, very quickly.
Yeah, so at New Heights Communications, we kind of have two main verticals. And we do a lot outside of that, but I would say our bread and butter is really messaging and media relations. And I do a lot in that media relations space. So I like to say that we as PR professionals are kind of the translators between what our clients want to say and the stories that reporters want to tell. So it's on us kind of in between to find that happy ground and get something out into the world that readers are really going to resonate with. And that's going to be a really memorable story. I tell my clients a lot of times that if you're going on a podcast, you're doing a TV interview, you want your story to be memorable enough that someone later that day at the kitchen table with their friends or family can say, "Guess what I heard today?" and be able to repeat it back. So we like to think of ourselves as front of the class kids with kind of back of the class mentality. When it comes to messaging, we know that competing to be the smartest in the room is often a way that you can alienate your audience. We're always looking to communicate things in a way that like your grandma or seventh grader can understand and kind of make those connections between what's happening nationally, what's happening locally, some of the trends that our clients are following. And we keep storytelling kind of at the heart of everything that we do and ensuring authentic communication.
Yeah, it's great to hear you hit on that because we, as a culture, we thrive on exchanging information by telling stories, right? And that's the best way to relay information. You have worked with just about every major media outlet around. What is some of your best advice for landing those feature pieces or just getting the quote in places like the New York Times or CNN or name your big media outlet?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've had the privilege of getting to work with some really incredible reporters to tell some really inspiring stories on behalf of my clients. And I think that the main thing that it boils down to is relationship building. And that is something that takes time. You know, over the last decade that I've been doing this, I've been able to build some really strong relationships with booking producers, with reporters. And I'm often finding that it takes remembering that the reporter on the other end of the email or the other end of the call is a person just like you or me. So it's learning like their personality, it's learning their communication styles. When I think just about like the booking producers that I work with on one specific network, there's one booking producer who's like super bubbly, super friendly, prefers to text. And I feel like when I'm booking a client for her show, it's like I'm talking to a friend. There's another booking producer who's like very fast paced, like a little chaotic. And I know that when my phone rings and her name pops up, like I better be ready with a pen and paper nearby to quickly write down all of the details and be able to turn around a guest for her within like 15 minutes or she'll be calling me back. So it's really getting to know the reporter like as a person. When we think about like print reporters at places like the New York Times, it's doing your research before you pitch them. Even if you haven't worked with them before, even if this is the start of the relationship, it's reading their bio, it's following them on social media and seeing what they're posting. And it's, of course, like reading their recent articles. When we look at surveys of journalists, consistently year over year, one of the top things that they say is that relevance is one of the things that they advise PR consultants to keep in mind. Their inboxes are flooded, and they say like a fraction of those emails are actually relevant to the story that they tell. So at New Heights, we're really not in the practice of doing these mass sends that I think have become a practice across the PR industry, but not a great one, especially today, but I'm not convinced it ever was. It's really like taking the time to craft personalized outreach, and I think if you were to compare them, doing 10 really customized pitches versus 100 that are generic really have much more of an impact. Reporters know, especially in the age of AI, which I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about today, they know when an email has gone to multiple different inboxes. And it's the quickest way to get sent to spam. So, really working with reporters to make their jobs easier, not harder. Pitching a complete package and kind of having your sources lined up and being really responsive and just building relationships with them. Because once that trust and that repertoire is established, that reporter knows that they can rely on you to give them good, timely, reliable sources and information. And you know you can rely on them to tell a great story on behalf of your client.
I love what you said about understanding the different personalities of the people who are at the other end of the email or the text or the whatever. I have an assignment editor who I've worked with for the last, 15, 20 years, who is a friend, but she writes in all caps all the
Yeah.
time.
And
And
you
so
know,
it's
like
it's
she's
almost
not
like
yelling
she's
at me.
yelling her response, but she's not, obviously. And she's the
Totally.
sweetest. She's the best. But it's always all caps with her. It's very funny.
Yes, absolutely. I've got a couple of those relationships too.
Well, let's talk though about those newsrooms and about how you're reaching out to those people. We all know that, staffs are getting slashed, newsrooms are shrinking. Fewer people doing the same or more jobs. And
Yeah.
I think, in the age of social media, when social media came on, that just became another thing that reporters in the field, and, I used to be a reporter in the field pre-social media, that's just another thing that they had to do. So, radio reporters, as an example, they didn't just have to file their radio reports, they also had to now take a photo, which they've never had to do before, post to their social media and or send to the newsroom so that they could post on this newsroom's, this station's social media. It's just more jobs and more stuff to do. How can we be helpful to reporters and assignment editors and newsrooms in doing all those jobs? Do you have any best practices?
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up the point about like in the era of social media, their job alone entails so many other places that they're running a story. And I think unfortunately, what we've seen with shrinking newsrooms, especially over the last year, is that a lot of news workers were laid off from newsrooms. So now, on top of that, you're also seeing a reporter who previously did the job of one person now doing the job of like three reporters. So they're stretched thin. The bar for coverage is a lot higher. And I think both journalists and us as PR professionals have had to adapt to this kind of changing landscape. And I do think there are a couple of best practices that emerged from that. So, one that I mentioned already is pitching a complete package. So, having your source in mind, knowing exactly the story that you're going to pitch, having that source ready to go too. So making sure that, like, 15 minutes after that email is sent out, like they could be ready for an interview as well as in the days to come, and being really responsive and working with their schedule because again, they're very busy. They're doing more jobs than ever. Making sure that your data is right there front and center. Reporters really love data-driven stories. So having a complete package with everything in there and doing proactive framing of the story. And this is a little bit of a shift that I think we've seen in PR over the last couple of years, where when I first got started, it was kind of like you supply the reporter with the information and they told the story. And sometimes if you tried to have like too heavy of a hand in the story, they'd be like, I'm the reporter, like it's my job to tell the story. I've actually seen a shift, and I think for PR professionals, it's almost in a way worked to our advantage because now we do have a heavier hand in shaping what that story looks like. Because again, we want to be doing that proactive story development and story framing so that a reporter can open the email and it's ready to take to their editor. They don't have to spend time like tracking down the data to back up the point that you're making. It's all right there in front of them. They don't have to spend time tracking down a source who's going to be able to validate or provide analysis around this story. And I think what we've seen as well is that because we have fewer and fewer reporters doing the job of still so many, because news consumption has surely not slowed down, we're finding that beats for reporters are getting more general and they're not as hyper specific as they once were. So that comes with a little bit of reporter education. And we've seen this as something that reporters are one, really receptive to. And two, that like there's really nice synergy between our clients and reporters when we do things like press conferences. So press conferences is one of those things that like, and webinars that we've actually seen like tremendous growth in over the last couple of years. And the reporters who are hopping on, especially when we do them virtually, it works with their schedule. They're able to hop on and hear from a few different sources, go through the data, ask questions. Within like an hour or 45 minutes, like a story can come to life right then and there with everything that they need. So there's definitely ways that I think we're adapting as PR consultants to this higher level of coverage. And we're also exploring other avenues where we could be running some of these stories, whether it's earned media, social media, or some emerging platforms like Substack, where a lot of reporters are starting to gravitate to because of the editorial liberty that those platforms provide.
Yeah, I want to get to Substack, but let's jump back for a minute what you said about, I mean, look, the political PR,
Hmm.
um, seems to, in my mind, seems to hinge on the press conference, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so many press conferences, so many standing at podiums, so many making announcements, right? But you're talking about moving that physical press conference, that in-person press conference with a wall of cameras pointed at you, to the TV-based, the Zoom-based press conference. Or is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, and I think it depends on the client. I often say that like if there's a visual component to do with it, then sometimes it still makes sense to have it in person. I had a client who was in Colorado and they were launching a ballot measure campaign. And so for their purposes, it made sense for us to do that on the steps of the Capitol, where there were really great optics. There was a great visual backdrop. We had a bunch of speakers that were there. And we were mainly focused on Colorado press who are right in that area. Sometimes that's still relevant for clients that are right in Washington, D.C. We've got tons of great backdrops there. But what we're finding with a lot of clients that are based all over the country and those who are maybe not in the political sector, but are more in the nonprofit sector that are focused on more issue areas, that virtual press conferences are something that were kind of born out of the pandemic when we weren't able to have these face-to-face, in-person meetings, and they've stuck around because a lot of times, like I said, it really works with a reporter's schedule. Instead of having to counter in like the time that they're spending to get on the metro, get down to the location, get set up, wait for things to get started, find their source in the crowd, get back. That's something that's happening maybe over the course of 45 minutes, and we're able to record it and have it in their inbox 15 minutes after that. So it's a little bit of a combination, just depending on optics, visuals, and I think ease of getting the information out there.
That's fantastic advice, and it's something that I actually hadn't even considered. Because again, coming from a reporter background and having done this for a while, it's still I still operate in the old school way of, okay, if you, I actually try to avoid the press conference, right? Because for some of the clients that I work with, a press conference is kind of boring. For your clients, it actually makes sense because that's sort of the nature of what they do.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting. You mentioned it about AI, so let's jump into it and talk about it. And I imagine that in the Zoom press conference or in the recorded press conference, AI can play a role simply by delivering a transcript along with the video, right? Talk about how AI is influencing what you do in the political sphere and how you're working with it and even maybe safeguarding against it.
Yeah, I think across the media spectrum, AI is still like really in the early stages of how we're exploring working with it. It seems like both for journalists and PR professionals alike, we're still getting comfortable with the applications of it and the ethicality of it as well. And I think there was a really big conversation over the past like year or so as AI was really getting off the ground and it was finding its way into our industry of, oh no, is AI going to replace us as communications professionals? Especially when it can write a press release in 10 seconds or pitch in 5 seconds. I think there were some real concerns there. And as I've played around with it, as I've worked with it, and as I've studied it more, I don't think that we need to have that fear. And I'll tell you why I think that. I think at least not right now is AI at the level where it sounds like a person yet. It's learning, it's growing every day, but you can still tell the difference between something that's been written by AI and something that's been written by a good writer. In the same way, to my point previously, you can tell as a reporter receiving an email whether that pitch was customized for you or whether that was something that went to a million different inboxes. So it's very kind of similar to that practicality. You could have it do a first draft, but it shouldn't be doing your final copy. And I often say too with AI that have it write sentences, don't have it write paragraphs. So it's great when you have writer's block or you get stuck on a sentence or there's a different way that you want to frame it to ask it to give you a couple of iterations. And it's often like a line or a sentence fragment that is what you're looking for. It's often not like an entire speech or a press release or an op ed, even. It's never going to come out in final form. Maybe one day, but I don't think the technology is quite there yet unless you're doing like hyper customization of like an AI tool that you yourself is developing, which I don't think is where most PR and journalists are at quite yet. So I think that's one way that I see us kind of like using AI and why I think that it's not something we need to totally fear yet. The other piece that we talked about is storytelling. And I think that there is always going to be a strong sense for authentic communication. And the reality is that like AI doesn't have human experience to be able to pull on. It can't relate to experiences, it can't tell you stories, it can't pull on different memories. That kind of authentic communication, that human to human interaction, I think is something we crave. And that makes good comms when we're able to kind of evoke emotions based on shared experiences. But I do think there are ways that we should be thinking about how we use it and how it can streamline our work. So one of the big things is that like it can cut down on research time. And I think of AI like I think of Wikipedia. Wikipedia used to be like the big bad guy, especially in academic institutions. It was a no-go. You never referenced Wikipedia because it could be full of lies. I think it's something that we've progressively gotten more comfortable using. And what we do is we don't cite Wikipedia, we follow the footnotes and we trace those back to actual sources and we verify. And that's how I think as PR professionals, we should be using AI in our work as well, is follow the sources, verify the information, and hold on to that critical research analysis when it's feeding you information back. Because it does get things wrong. Just a couple of months ago, I was out in Arizona hiking, and the hike we wanted to do got closed down. So I asked it to give me another one because I use it both in professional and personal instances. And it gave me a hike in Utah. And I knew that because I had done that hike in Utah. And I set it back to it, and it said, oh, yeah, I got that wrong. So again, it's learning and it's updating in real time. We shouldn't take it at face value, and we shouldn't take it as an end all be all. It's a tool to kind of speed up and streamline, but it's not where our draft should end by any means.
Are you seeing any of your clients in the political space either use or push back on AI? What is the sentiment among them? You have name any names here, but or any reaction from either DC or local politicians who are either using or not wanting to use AI?
Again, I think a lot of them are in an explorative phase, and I've been very interested in how varied that has been. So I work with a healthcare client, and they go out across the country and they have conversations with people about what they want out of the healthcare system. And one of the conversations that they had was about AI. And they found that there's like areas of their health that they're comfortable with AI in. There's areas of their health where there's not, and where they seek more transparency. I had another client that specifically works with the API demographic. And they were saying that, like, while a lot of groups are super fearful of the impact that AI will have on our elections, will have on voter demographics, for them, because APIs are such a diverse group, representing so many different nations and speaking so many different languages, it was a tool that really quickly allowed them to kind of translate different materials, or to create different communications plans and campaign plans that work within each kind of subsect of that demographic. So again, we're still in the early stages of exploring what it looks like, but I have found that people, I think, are a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more open to how we are using it, and how we're kind of willing to engage with it.
Really interesting stuff, and obviously something that's going to continue to evolve as we all teach AI to think a little bit better.
Absolutely. Yeah, get the hikes right.
Yeah, no kidding. Erica, thank you so much for sharing all this information. A great conversation. We are not done with you yet, however. We've got one more part of our podcast. And that's where we segue to the Inside the Actors Studio portion of our podcast, or I should say the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal that page from Inside the Actors Studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. With your indulgence, Erica, let's begin with rapid fire question number one. What is your favorite news source?
Gotta say, MSNBC cannot get enough of Rachel Maddow.
Love it. Rapid fire question number two. What's your favorite social media platform?
TikTok, I am chronically online scrolling.
Do you have your clients on TikTok? Are they leveraging video?
Some of them are making their way onto TikTok, and others are doing collaborations with creators who are on those spaces, which I think has been where we've seen a lot of excitement and engagement.
That's great. Rapid fire question number three. Coffee or alcohol?
I'm gonna say coffee adjacent, a matcha latte.
Very nice. You're nailing this rapid fire portion here. Rapid fire question number four. What's your favorite on the run food?
A little bit of a weird one, but I've been really into seaweed chips.
All right. Where do you find those? Whole Foods?
You can
Where else?
you can find them at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. I've had like 3 today. They're just so quick and easy.
It's all about Trader Joe's, man. I
Oh
misspoke
yeah.
there. Never mind Whole Foods. It's Trader Joe's all the way. Rapid fire question number five. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
I think I want to be some sort of like travel agent, because right now, when I'm not creating press releases, I'm creating travel guides.
Sounds like a plan. Erica, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find us at newheightscommunications.com. You can find me, Erika Gulija, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky.
Fantastic, Erica. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.